The following is an exclusive presentation of Blaze Sports.
Welcome back to episode 3 of Blaze Game Day. Jack Connolly with Will Anderson and Taylor Gautney. We got a jam-packed show coming your way. We'll take care of the end of the winter sports, men's and women's basketball. Also jump in to water polo, softball, and basketball. To lead things off, men's basketball found their new leader on Monday. Graham Rossini hired Randy Bennett after 25 years at St. Mary's. The perennial winner who turned the Gales into a consistent contender in the West Coast Conference. They made the past 5 NCAA tournaments, 7-time WCC Coach of the Year. Comes home to lead this Arizona State men's basketball program after they parted ways with Bobby Hurley. There appears to be widespread approval with the hire of Bennett. What do you guys make of the new addition?
I think it's an awesome hire. Look, honestly, Graham Rossini has done such a good job at bringing in culture people, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but Kenny Dillingham, absolute culture guy. I know he didn't hire him, but he's extended guys like Bloomquist, guys like Greg Powers. Molly Miller obviously has been huge for the culture, and I think he's done such a good job, obviously schematically and just kind of game fit, but really the culture and building what they want to build here in Tempe. I think it's been absolutely amazing. I think it's another really good hire from Graham Rossini.
Yeah, and I think Graham Rossini coming into this hire, he definitely had a list of guys, but he wanted that experienced guy. Because Bobby Hurley coming here wasn't experienced at first. It was kind of an experiment. Of course, spent 11 years, made it guard you, made it where it was, and then it kind of just went downhill. So I think Graham Rossini with this hire just really wanted that experienced guy that can bring in the funds with the NIL. He's adjusting the NIL fund and everything, and the guys that he can bring from St. Mary's. I mean, we're looking at a newly rejuvenated Sun Devil basketball team.
Yeah, this guy who won nearly 80% of his games in the NIL era, and where a lot of coaches, Bennett comes in, he's 63, no longer one of the younger coaches. He's made a seamless transition to this era. Taylor, you've been locked in on this story. Who are some of the guys you think that he wants to build this team around next year?
Yeah, we saw it the other day, a new transfer, or a new freshman coming in, a new commit, flipped from St. Mary's to ASU already, and J. Rob Croy, a really talented guard from SoCal. I'm really excited what he can see. And then, of course, we got to look at the current roster. You got to look at guys like Massamba Diop, who has a freshman, 7-1 from Senegal. What we saw from him, especially in the mid to late season, kind of stepping up as that leader. Mo Odom, it was the beginning. It was all Mo Odom, and then Mo kind of gave it to other guys. We really saw Diop start to shine. We really saw Noah Miusin. I really want to highlight him. He came in as a sophomore from Belgium, and what he did to the program, his ball handling, his playmaking, his assists, we really saw him to catapult that team to where they wanted to be late in the season. And he was really a big option in that Arizona game that was really close at home, the Texas Tech upset, the Kansas upset. He was really a guy that you got to keep here in the Valley.
And then I think, honestly, for me, it's how do you re-energize the crowd, the fans? Bobby Hurley has talked so much about how DFA was jumping before COVID. They had that place rocking. They had that place packed. And then COVID happened. There's been so many stories about sports after COVID. But then it kind of became, well, they can't get people back into DFA unless it's opposing fans. We saw the U of A game last year. That was probably 40% Wildcats, if not even more than that. And it's, I think, so big is he's a Valley guy. He's going to bring people from SoCal. It's not like they're coming all the way from Nebraska or the South or somewhere far out there like that. They're coming from SoCal, just a 4-hour drive. I think being able to get a guy from over there to come over here, not a lot of travel, and then just re-energizing this fan base. This is something that there had to be a change, and I think a guy like Randy Bennett is just the change that they need.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point. The last 2 hires, Herb Sendek and Bobby Hurley, they were East Coast guys. They weren't from here. You brought up a good point. Somebody who's from this area knows the recruiting. There's a lot of talent here in Arizona and the West Coast. For you, how important is that to bring a guy in who's from here and understands the landscape?
I think it's everything. I don't want to keep going back to Kenny Dillingham, but you have to. Football is the number one, right? Football is going to be the main generator of revenue. It's going to be the most eyeballs. How do people see your program? Typically, it's through the football lens, and Kenny Dillingham is a guy who cries every time he talks about how he lives right across the street from his parents, right across the street from his sister. He's a guy who went to ASU. He dreamed about being at ASU, and now Randy Bennett's a guy who maybe didn't have those same dreams, but coming from this area, knowing where kind of the hotspots are recruiting, I think so much of it always goes back to just what do you know and what is home, and to bring a guy back home after being at with the Gales for so long, I think is going to be so huge.
Yeah, and I really think Randy Bennett, it was his time to leave. You know, he spent all that time at St. Mary's, but with the NIL changes and everything, you know, St. Mary's is not a Big 12 school, to put it frank. The Big 12 is one of the best conferences in basketball, if not the best. You're moving to a new conference, especially with the WCC, with Gonzaga making that change. Your biggest rivals going on to the Pac-12. I think it was time for him to make a change. I think he made the correct decision to come back home because, like Will said, there's so many talented basketball players in the Valley. I mean, you look at Braden Burries, Koa Pete, what they're doing at U of A. Yeah. Imagine if Randy Bennett can bring someone like that into ASU.
Yeah, it's a great point. You bring up an excellent point. This isn't the WCC. This is the Big 12, widely regarded as the top basketball conference in America. Will, what do you think it will take for Randy Bennett to turn the Sun Devils into a contender?
Well, we've seen in the NIL era and the transfer portal era, it can be a lot quicker than I think most people have seen in the past and will be coming to expect. But I also think the Sun Devils have had the foundation. They beat Texas Tech. They beat Kansas. They can already do it with the roster that Bobby Hurley had built, with the kind of infrastructure that had already been there. So now it's how do you get over the hump? How do you, instead of upset Texas Tech or upset Kansas, it's no, we are expected to win that game. I think the big thing is just to build the camaraderie, to build, hey, maybe we don't have, you know, the top elite rosters like a U of A, but boy, can we compete with them. And I think momentum and confidence can bring so much more to a team than just what maybe the stars that 24/7 will put on them can.
Yeah, and I really loved the Instagram video of Bennett meeting Molly Miller. I think if you're Randy Bennett, you're looking at what Molly Miller's done on the other side with the women's basketball team, bringing in all these transfers, those first-year transfers, and really getting them to buy into that identity that you want. That's what Bennett has to do. Of course, he has to keep Jop if he can. He's got to keep Nick Irvin on that coaching staff because that Santa Clara Vegas game when Hurley gets ejected, Irvin leads them to a win. That's one of the best things I've seen in person. And then, of course, you just got to bring in all the transfers. You got to keep Trevor Best. You got to keep Truitt. You got to keep Mewson. I think if you keep those core guys and get some of your St. Mary's guys to come over with you, that's a full roster right there.
Yeah, Randy Bennett has his work cut out for him heading into the offseason. Coming up next, we'll talk about the magical season that Molly Miller and the women's basketball program had. She has reignited the Valley women's basketball team back in the tournament. We'll talk more about it next. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Molly Miller has reignited the Valley Sun Devil women's basketball back in the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2019. They went 24-11 on the season. And guys, this was a season to remember. Molly Miller's 24 wins were the most by a first-year head coach in ASU program history, plus 14 wins from last year were the most from a season improvement from an all-Power 5. Best start, 15-0 to his season, as well as the best home record in Sun Devil program history. Guys, we could talk all day about how special this year was. What are your main takeaways from this season?
Yeah, I really just love how Molly Miller, since day one, really wanted to install that identity of the team. Her introductory press conference, she said, we're going to just play defense. If offense will come, but defense, hand and face. And you saw that all season. I mean, all season, they shut down some of the biggest names in the Big 12. We saw it in the Big 12 tournament, you know, losing to Iowa State pretty favorably earlier in the season. You come in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, you shut down Audi Crooks. As soon as she catches the ball, you send 3 defenders towards her, just stressed her out. One of the leading scorers in NCAA women's basketball. And this team, I mean, you can't talk about them enough. Just all these transfers coming together under one common goal. We were talking about it earlier with what Randy Bennett has to do, exactly that. What Molly Miller has done for this program is unseen, unheard, and it's super impressive just to see in year one that she turned around a program that much.
Well, and you talked about it, you hit on it. It's the culture, right? It's the everybody wants to be here, everybody wants to fight for each other. I know Marley Wash just talked about it at the end of the season that everybody just wanted to show up for each other, not for anything else but themselves. Molly Miller's flu game in the tournament, talking about how she couldn't fly with the team, and there were questions, would Molly make it? Of course she would make it. That's Molly Miller for you. And I think just so much of it is the home run hire. It was year one, what she was able to do, the biggest turnaround in ASU women's basketball history, and I think this is only the foundation for what's going to be so much higher than what we saw last year.
Marley Washington said when you bring in good players and good people, the culture changes easy. What do you think we will remember looking back most about this team?
Yeah, I really think you'll remember that NCAA tournament berth. I mean, they go into the first four. They're the last team selected on that selection show. I'm sure everyone in that room was just stressing out about it. You hear your name called, you just see the explosion, the pure joy of that room to make the tournament. And that first game against Virginia, I mean, that's a good Virginia team. You saw them in the next round beat Iowa, at Iowa basically, a 2-seed Iowa team to move on. So you saw that game, you saw the clutch shooting, especially Marley Washington's that corner 3, showed up her career high, I believe, with 19 points in that corner 3. So that tournament berth, like Molly said in her press conference after that, that's a year-by-year expectation. And what she can build with this team, keeping Brackens, Kyra, if you can, I mean, the sky's the limit for ASU women's basketball.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's definitely the turnaround. But then how about beating U of A not once, not twice, but thrice? Once at home, once away, once in the Big 12 tournament. That is always something you can stick a feather in your cap in. Every single sport, if you can beat U of A, you've done at least something right that year. Forget everything else. The fact that they were able to do that on top of obviously the turnaround, obviously the tournament itself, so much of it. But I think beating U of A is always something pretty good for you.
The Sun Devils sweep Arizona for the first time in nearly a decade. There's going to be a lot of turnover with this program, losing 6 seniors. As always with the transfer portal, you don't know exactly what you have coming back. Obviously, retaining McKenna Brackens will be a priority. But what are the main goals to rebuilding for Molly Miller in this offseason?
I think if you're really a transfer player right now, you entered the transfer portal in women's basketball, you're saying, why would I not want to play for Molly Miller? Why would I not want to buy into this identity, the pure joy and relationships that those players had? I mean, being around that team, you really just saw that they loved each other and they cared for each other, and that showed on the court. And like you said, you got to keep Kyra, you got to keep Brackens. You're losing a lot of key pieces, Washington, Elliott, and I believe Poe is graduating as well. That was a huge get. But we saw it last year. Molly Miller knows the transfer portal. She knows the landscape of college basketball. She knows where it's going and where it's headed. And I think if you're a player sitting in the transfer portal right now, why would you not want to come to the Valley and be part of the greatest show in Arizona?
Taylor, you know what else she knows? She knows how to win. And I think that's such a big thing. This was, again, year one of the process. You've got to trust that process. This was the first time that these players played together for an entire season. Obviously, those 4 seniors, they're gone, but you can bring in more talent. You can keep talent together for a long period of time, especially in the transfer era, the NIL era, where you go here, you go there, and this team looks completely different year in and year out. I think the biggest thing is to be talent retention, and then just the same goal, the same mentality retention, and understanding that the process, this was only year one. Look at how far they came in year one and where the process can be headed if they continue to stay on track.
Yeah, there's the blueprint to success Molly Miller had getting this program back to the NCAA tournament. Will, you kind of talked about it. There's some things that Randy Bennett can learn from Molly Miller. They're different coaches, of course. Molly Miller has that infectious personality that has taken the Valley and made not only the Valley but also the nation take note. But what's something do you think that Randy Bennett can learn from Molly?
Yeah, I think it's just having your players kind of rally behind you, but then showing up for them as well. As I think we've seen so much that she's out in the community with them. She's doing things with them. But the big thing I think for Randy is you look at her flu game per se, where she didn't travel with the team, and then it was, well, I couldn't miss this for the world. That's a direct quote from Molly Miller. It's definitely something where he's going to see that showing up for the team, showing up for the players, can really show them how much they mean to him and how much he wants to mean to them. And then in turn, that brings in people to DFA. That brings in people to be invested, whether that be NIL-wise or just showing up to the game. And so I think so much of it, and I know we keep talking about it, but it seems to be the #1 focus for Graham Rossini and all his coaches and all his teams is culture. And I think this is, again, both culture hires that are so far really good for the Sun Devils.
Well, the culture has changed. It seemingly overnight for Arizona State women's basketball back in the tournament. It'll be fun to see how Molly Miller reloads, as well as Randy Bennett rebuilding this program. But we're right in the heat of spring sports. A lot of success from the men's for baseball. Sun Devil baseball back in the rankings for the first time this season. And Arizona State softball, they dropped their bit of a shaky part of the season. We'll talk about that more next on Blaze Game Day.
But it's the 3rd year in a row that Ethan's gotten me the same set of pencils. I really don't even know, like, what he's thinking. Like, maybe he thinks I collect them or something.
Well, he's gotten me a notebook for 2 years. I take my notes on my computer.
Well, you did tell him, like, you like the movie The Notebook.
That's a little out of context, don't you think? Oh. Parker, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, hey, what time is it?
It's 9:24.
Oh, that's not too bad. It's 4 hours. I usually sleep in on the weekends anyways.
The weekends?
Parker, it's Thursday.
Shoot. Sorry, I'm late, you guys.
Is he gonna be okay?
I think so. We probably should have asked him what month it was, though. Last time I caught him Christmas shopping, and it was February.
Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Jack Connolly, Will Anderson, and Taylor Gautney talking baseball. The Sun Devils 18-6 on the season, back into the rankings for the first time this season. They approached it earlier this year before they had their Texas road trip. They struggled on the road, bounced back 4-2 in Big 12 play, tied for second. But the pitching, we knew was going to be a potential Achilles heel this season. The Sun Devils struggled at Kansas State. They were able to take 2 of 3. They appear to be on cruise control over UNLV, had a 12-0 lead at one point, ended up sweating it out, just sneaking out with a 12-11 win. We'll start with you, Taylor. How can the staff stabilize the pitching?
Yeah, I think a big storyline coming into this season was Cole Carlone. Bullpen arm last year, you got to move him to a starter. He's your ace. He makes that game one start against Omaha. So far, a sub-3 ERA. And then, of course, Cole Klecker, the 1-2 punch. I love that moment against TCU. He's at a 3 ERA as well. Moment against TCU, playing his former team, throws the forks up after his appearance is over. But it's really been about this bullpen. Sean Fitzpatrick last season really struggled. He's gotten going this year. Alex Overbay has been up and down. Eli Buxton, Taylor Penn. Those bullpen arms have got to start showing up because we saw it on Monday. They were up 12-0 against UNLV, and then UNLV came all the way back to make that a 12-11 nail-biter. So this bullpen has really got to show up, and it hasn't as of late.
Yeah, and I think it's so big, going from the bullpen to a starter to the ace, not just, any starter, not the fifth starter, anything like that. Like going from the bullpen to being an ace and then succeeding and excelling, I think has been such a big thing. And then too, it's the Big 12. There's a lot of good baseball teams there. Obviously, they're going to face West Virginia soon, and that'll be a huge, huge matchup. But your offense can put up as much as any in the country. But how are you going to damper that on the defensive side, on the pitching side? Hey, if you go score 13, like we saw in that UNLV game, all you need is to score 12. You're going to let up 11, and it's going to be a little scary. But if you can just score more than they score, I'm okay with giving up runs as long as I can score more than the other team. And I think right now, though you don't want that to kind of be your mentality, your ideology, that's kind of been what they've been rolling with right now.
Well, the Sun Devils have scored a lot of runs, and they've had some big hitters. 6 Sun Devils hitting over 1 OPS. I mean, Hairston, he's been spectacular all season long. Dean Toigo, he's been smashing the ball since the Loyola Marymount series. New Contradas, good to see him bounce back. Even Cooper Klauser getting more playing time as of late. And Cohen DeCly. Taylor, what makes this lineup so potent?
I mean, you said it. You have Dean Toigo and Landon Harrison, your 1-2 punch. Toigo coming in from UNLV before this week was at 11 home runs. Harrison at 10. And this lineup up and down, whichever way you look at it. Of course, the transfer addition in Toigo, Musaritis, of course, Contradas started out the season hot, went down with that injury, but now back in starting lineup. As we speak, this team is up 8-1 in the second inning. So we have seen this offense time and time again. In the first 4 innings, this offense is one of the best in the country, and it's undoubtedly 1 through 9 can all go.
Well, Landon Harrison is just whacking baseballs all over the field. He's been unbelievable, hitting .430. That is unheard of. But they lead the nation in slugging when they're down. And it's, we talked about the pitching. They can be down a lot, but they can also, again, pour on those runs, pour on that support. And so I think they're never counting themselves out, which is the biggest thing. They know that they've got the top end of the lineup. Dudes are going to rake constantly. If you can get runners in scoring position, get the bats going. You've always got to put the ball in play. You don't know what's going to happen from there. Routine plays can be messed up all the time. Shout out Aaron Judge. So I really just think the fact that they've able to just keep the train moving, keep everything going, has just really helped them so far this year.
Yeah, Hairston hitting .433 in the season, 1.403 OPS, 10 homers, 11 doubles. I mean, he had 12 all season. This guy could hit 20 doubles this year and finish hitting over 400. That's a guy with first-round upside in the 27 draft. And when you talked about the bullpen, it's hard when you look at the top 2 guys in your staff. You got Carlone, the Friday night guy, and then Overbay. Both guys who were in the bullpen last year. You touch on a handful of names who've struggled, whether it's Sean Fitzpatrick or Finn Edwards. Coming down the stretch as we start carving out roles, who do you see as a guy who could step up in the bullpen?
I mean, honestly, they're going to have to prove it. I don't know if I can necessarily give a single guy the nod. I think it's really because of the transitions, like you've been saying, coming from the bullpen to starting, and now you're the Friday night guy, you're the Saturday guy, and things like that. It's really going to be what do they, kind of how do they rank themselves? How do they fit into their own spots? I think more than anything, it's as the season progresses, they're going to kind of fall into their own spots. I'm sure kind of with coaching and with some lineup changes, they will kind of be put into those spots, but I think they're kind of going to work themselves into their own spots more than I think we can really assign to them at this point, at least.
All right, looking ahead to this season, Sun Devils taking on 17th ranked West Virginia, 5-1 in Big 12 play. The Mountaineers sitting atop the Big 12 guys. What do you see heading into this series?
Yeah, I really think, Willie Bloomquist has been around the block. He's been here. He's not a first-year head coach. But again, it's all about the culture that ASU baseball has brought. Bloomquist in almost every presser literally says, we can compete with any baseball team. The Big 12 is not the best conference. Of course, you have the SEC, the Big 10, the ACC, all being up there. But the confidence that Bloomquist and coaching staff has instilled in these guys, I mean, we're seeing it tonight, up 8-1 against a good New Mexico State team. A lot of great options, a lot of great pieces that are pretty highly recruited out of high school. So the confidence that they're going to come into this series this weekend with, we can hang with these guys. They're higher ranked than us. Rankings just go out of their heads. They've talked about that before. The whole team has basically talked about that in pressers. No rankings, just good old baseball. This ASU baseball team, with that confidence, no one can stop them.
Yeah, especially if they can get that New Mexico State win, really kind of propel them into the weekend on a high note. I talked about how they're leading the nation in slugging when they're down. There's so many coaches speak about how, I put my team up against anybody. I really believe that we can compete with anybody. But there's one thing to be saying it and then one thing to be showing it, and the Sun Devils have certainly been showing it. And then two, they saw at Kansas State, you can do really good in a couple games and then look really flat in another one. I kind of expect that to happen. I don't expect a sweep there from the Sun Devils, but this is the best team you'll probably face, at least in the Big 12 for the season, maybe the rest of the season going forward. So how do you match up against them? This is a team that can most certainly make it to Omaha. How do you stack up yourself versus them? Then we'll see the results. Then we'll see kind of how the team's going to fare out for the rest of the year after that.
Ranked Big 12 showdown coming up this weekend. 17th-ranked Mountaineers taking on your 22nd ranked Sun Devils. Coming up next, we'll talk softball. Arizona State dropped 6 of their past 9, but here's why you shouldn't worry. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Jack Connolly, Will Anderson, Taylor Gautney. We're talking softball. 24-9 on the season. Had a hot start. 20-3 in non-conference play. They dropped 6 of 9 before getting the win earlier this week. 7-3 over North Carolina State. Will, you were on site in Tucson, had a strong 16-5 win to open up the series, fell behind big in Game 2, clawed all the way back to tied 8-8, faded late, then dropped that series finale. What went wrong in Tucson over the weekend?
Yeah, I think it was really a tale of 2 games if I think about it. The first game, obviously, Arizona State, 16-5. It was a demolishing of them. Emily Shep returning to Tucson for the first time, 4 for 4, 2 home runs, a double, a single. She was on cycle watch in her last at-bat. Instead of hitting the triple, she went to all 4. She took the trip around the bases for the home run second of the game. Then the second game, Arizona State went down 8-0. They came all the way back to make it 8-8, and then they got walked off. Okay, they come back on Sunday. New mentality, what happened? The same exact thing. It was 4-0, and then 4-4, and then 6-4. Kenzie Brown came in. After starting the game, she let by a monster home run by the star catcher, Sydney Stewart, for the Wildcats. And really, it was just the Sun Devils could never claw ahead of the Wildcats. If they could catch up to them, that's all they could get to. The Wildcats were the ones that, when the pressure was the biggest, they were the ones to go ahead.
Yeah, Wildcats, 11th ranked nationally. Taylor, Sun Devils got the win earlier today in North Carolina. How can they get their groove back?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good team. We're not saying that this is not a good team. They started 20-3 in non-conference play, but yes, in Big 12, it has been a struggle, and that's mostly All-American Kenzie Brown. Just started out the season in non-con. We saw her in the Oklahoma game. She was wheeling and dealing against one of the best teams in collegiate softball, currently ranked number 3 now. Yeah. But in Big 12 play, there's been some struggles. A 5.09 ERA, unheard of for Kenzie Brown, by the way, last year, undeniable. But this pitching staff, if Kenzie Brown's not at the top of her game, you have Aisa Silva, who's been consistent, Mika Lupi, Mary Peyton Hodge rounds it out. But it's not a deep pitching staff, and we really saw it when Kenzie Brown was struggling with sickness. We believe she was struggling injury, but that's I'm not going to assume anything right there.
Yeah.
But this pitching staff is not very deep, so if one pitcher doesn't live up to the expectation, it really just mellows out. But the bats, it's kind of like baseball.
It really
the
is.
bats have just been undeniable. Kaylee Pond, Tiare Ho-Ching, Katie Chester just had another bomb today as we're speaking against NC State. I mean, Ashley Mejia returning was a big returner. This 1 through 9, again, just has been elite all season. Power bats everywhere. So many home runs, top in the Big 12 in those stats. Top in the Big 12 in average, home runs, on-base percentage, you name it. The Sun Devils have done it. And again, it just all goes back to the pitching. There has to be that combination of hitting and pitching, and it has to come together in Big 12 play.
Yeah, and they kind of lived and died by the long ball. Like you said, Kaylee Pond, Katie Chester, Ashley Mejia can hit a ball out in any part of any yard in the country. They've got more pop than just about any top 3 in anywhere in the country. But then it was really, they got bit by small ball. The first home run, I believe, that U of A hit all weekend was that go-ahead 2-run home run on Sunday in the 6th inning by Sydney Stewart. So in the second to last inning of the entire weekend was the first time U of A went yard. All the other runs came by way of the small ball, and I think that's where Arizona State really got bit. Is their pitching, obviously, it's too Kenzie Brown reliant. Mika Lupi, for the most part, is good, but she kind of has to be on, and Aisa Silva, honestly, it depends on what the umpires kind of think. She likes to sit on the outside part of the plate, and sometimes that can get her a little caught up. So the Sun Devils are going to have to rely more on just expanding their ideology offensively and not just living and dying by the long ball, because that's really what killed them against U of A.
Yeah, and despite the shaky stretch, the Sun Devils still 24-9, still receiving votes in last week's poll. What is the honest state of the Sun Devils at this juncture, over halfway, a little bit, month and some change before the Big 12 tournament? Where do you put them at this point in the season?
Yeah, I think they're one of the top teams in the Big 12. They're certainly not better than Arizona, though the first night they were the last team to receive votes. They went out there, they won 16-5. We said, well, why can't they be the number 1 team in the Big 12? Then they showed it the next 2 days. I think this is the team that really has to decide where they are. I think they're, again, really top-heavy on the offense, but that's not to say that the back half of the lineup isn't bad. They are extremely good as well, I beg your pardon, but it's really just that pitching has been so inconsistent, and again, you can't just lean on the All-American, All-Big 12, all-everything Kenzie Brown. You're going to have to do more than just her, and again, Mary Peyton Hodge, we haven't really seen her in tough situations, but when she's been in the game, she hasn't been all that great. Aisa Silva and Mika Lupi, the veterans, have been so up to this point. I think it's really up to them when they play teams to the same caliber. This isn't the Kajikawa Classic. This isn't the Sun Devil Invitational. And not to say that those teams are inferior that they're playing, but you have these teams now that you have to compete with, and they're much more similar to you caliber-wise, roster-wise, pitching-wise. You're going to have to play up to your standards every single night. It's no more days off if you want to continue in this Big 12.
Yeah, and a blatant thing this season, too, has been fielding, especially the middle infield. We were actually calling the game for Blaze against Utah, the Friday night game, and Mika Lupi goes out there in extras, gives up all these runs, but none of them earned. 3 errors, I believe, in that I believe it was the top of the 8th that we saw that led to Utah coming away with that one. But the defense all year just has not been where it needs to be. Again, you have the bats, you have the pitching sometimes, the fielding has to be there. And I think, again, the theme of this episode has been identity and building that culture. And what Megan Bartlett has done has been awesome, of course, kind of building that program when she has come in the past few years, getting big names, retaining big names with all that conversation around Kenzie Brown. Oh, is she going to go to Texas, Texas Tech, all these NIL offers. But again, this Sun Devil team, I like the point that you made. This Big 12 conference is good. Texas Tech's the number 2 team in the nation. Arizona's up there. A lot of great teams. So you're getting into the stretch of Big 12 play. You have to just fix mistakes. You have to fix the pitching. You just have to play the fundamental softball. And I think this team, if they can really lock in on that and hone in on that, the sky's the limit for this team, especially with the Big 12 tournament, NCAA tournaments, and everything.
Sun Devils will get a chance to get right as they continue their Mizuno Classic in North Carolina, taking on North Carolina and Marist in Chapel Hill over the weekend. Coming up next, it's time to start paying attention to ASU water polo. The Sun Devils 23-4 on the season, creeping up the national rankings, checking in at 11th in RPI, top 5 in a couple of other polls. Could this be the year the Sun Devils get back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2021? We'll talk more about it next. Welcome back to Blaze Game Day. Jack Connolly, Will Anderson, and Taylor Gautney. We're talking water polo, 23-4 on the season, ranked 11th in their RPI, top 5 in 2 polls. It has fans wondering, is this the year the Sun Devils get back to the NCAA tournament? We'll start with you guys. How are you feeling about the Sun Devil ability to get back?
Yeah, I think it's hard because the teams that they played that they've lost to, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, those are all teams that you're going to have to play again if you want to make some sort of noise in your conference. So it's going to be tough. I know the RPI ranking's high, and that could help them in terms of NCAAs, but it's going to be tough to get there knowing that who they've played and what they've done against them.
Yeah, we've seen it throughout head coach Petra Party's career, which no shade to her, but it seems like the non-con is awesome, and then you get into conference play and it goes downhill. Her first year, 23-8, 5th in the conference with a 2-4 record. This year, 23-4, 1-3 in the conference. So it's kind of been, you get to conference play, you start playing these really good teams, and it kind of goes downhill. So I think if you have 2 great opportunities coming up, you have UCLA and Indiana, 2 teams in your conference who are above you, and the way water polo works, there's at-large bids, but only 8 teams make the tournament.
Yeah.
So if you're ASU, you have to start making some noise, and you got to do it right now.
Petra Party in year 3 at the helm of the ASU program. She knows a little thing or two about success in the tournament. She was a part of that 2014 team, that first Sun Devil team to make the NCAA tournament. They're trying to get back for the first time in her tenure. They've been led by senior attacker Millie Quinn, all-time leading scorer in ASU history. And if hasn't been Millie Quinn, it's been Itziar Almeida, second leading scorer, and she made noise last year as a freshman, scored over 100 points. But as you get deeper into this season, there's going to need to be somebody else who's going to step up. Who else do you see could potentially be an X factor going down the stretch?
Yeah, you definitely got to think that teams are starting to catch on to the Millie Quinn, Itziar Almeida train. I really think Sophie Shorter-Robinson can show up in these next few games. She has 38 goals so far in the season. She notched 4 goals in that top 25 matchup against San Diego State. She had 55 goals in 2024 before kind of taking a step down last season. So we've seen that she can rise up to the occasion, and especially in these later games. Again, you got to think teams have keyed in on the 2 stars for the Sun Devils, but water polo is such a team sport with all the durability that you have to go through and all the endurance that you have to have. 9 players with 20-plus goals on this ASU team, so it hasn't just been them, but they're definitely the 2 stars. Watch out for Sophie Shorter-Robinson here in these next few games.
Yeah, and I think for me, and we'll get into this obviously, it's the goalkeeping, right? If you're going to stop Millie Quinn, your idea is going to be stop her and then go shoot and then go try and score. So we'll talk about that again, but who's going to be able to step up in the net, in the goal to try to be the one to stop those water polo balls from coming in, and then on the flip side, that'd be then giving ASU more opportunity to score and things of that nature.
Well, thanks for the lob, Will. Yeah, we're going to talk about the goalkeeper situation. Guys, if you were in the NCAA tournament, you can only start one. Would you go with Sana Kaiser or Carrie Glad? Both have made 12 starts this season. Kaiser is 10.2 saves a game, allows 7.8 per game compared to Glad's 7.1 saves, but under 7 goals a season. Looking at the numbers, season's on the line. Who are you guys putting in goal?
Yeah, and if you're the Sun Devils right now, I mean, having those 2 goalkeepers is huge. Kaiser 3rd in the conference, Glad 7th in the conference in total stats. I think you got to go Kaiser. She's more experienced. She's been in this scenario before. She played in the conference tournament. In last season in 2025, they went 2-1 with her in net. So I think you got to go Kaiser. You got to give it to the more experienced. But again, water polo it's so much energy. I know I couldn't do it. I don't know about y'all. I know I couldn't get in the pool and swim that long. So watch out for both of them to play. But I definitely think Kaiser has to be the starter.
I'm actually going to go with Carrie Glad on this one. I think the numbers kind of prove it. She's got the lower goals allowed per game. And my big thing is there's an old saying where if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Well, I don't think this is the issue with Arizona State. They have 2 goalies, but that's a good problem to have. You have 2 good goalies. If you have this question, knowing down the stretch you're going to have to play some meaningful games, it's just a matter of, more than anything, who has the hot hand and who do you trust in that situation. And I think for me, it's got to be Carrie Glad.
Sun Devils coming down the stretch as they make their postseason push. They finish up this season 2 final games in the regular season. They'll take on UCLA this weekend on Saturday, and the next weekend they'll head to the Heartland to take on Indiana, and then the MPSF tournament coming up, which really will decide the Sun Devils' fate. Currently 1-3, but that will do it for today's episode of Blaze Game Day. I'm Jack Connolly for Will Anderson and Taylor Gautney. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a fun time in Sun Devil Athletics. Keep up with all of your information with the Sun Devils all season long.